Something shocking has come to light in Mexico. Something buried for centuries. Something that could completely change how we understand one of the darkest moments in history. Before we go any further, stop for a second and think about this question. Do you believe that the Los Trecho of Hernán Cortés really exists, or do you think it was just a legend? A story passed down to scare people and keep them dreaming? Because what you're about to hear is not just a story. It is not just history written in books. It is real. It was buried under our feet for 500 years. And when it finally came back into the light, it brought with it pain, greed, fear, and memory soaked in blood. Just a few decades ago, right in the heart of Mexico City, something unbelievable happened. During ordinary construction work, workers digging into the ground uncovered an object that left everyone frozen and in silence. A bar of gold, heavy, solid, almost 2 kilograms in weight. It had been resting there, untouched, unseen, forgotten, since the time of Spanish conquest. This single object may be the first real physical proof that the legendary Los Trecho of Hernán Cortés was not a myth after all. To understand why this matters so much, we have to go back in time, far back, to a night filled with screams, fire, and desperation. It was June 30, 1520. The city of Tenochtitlan was alive with chaos. Torches flickered in the darkness. The canals reflected fire instead of stars. The air was thick with fear and rage. Hernán Cortés and his men were running for their lives. They had come as CONQIR o RS.th y they had taken gold, jewels, sacred objects, anything that glittered. They melted priceless ceremonial treasures into crude bars of metal, not caring what they destroyed, only how much they could carry. But that night, everything went wrong. The Mexica people rose up. The Spanish soldiers tried to escape the city and the cave of darkness, crossing narrow causeways over water. They were exhausted. They were terrified, and they were greedy, too greedy. Their armor dragged them down. Their pockets were stuffed with gold. Many of them refused to let go even when the weight pulled them into the canals. The water tendre. Men drowned silently under the burden of stolen treasure. Gold sank into the mud, into the canals, into history. That night became known as La Noche Triste, the Night of Sorrows. For centuries, Spanish chronicles spoke of tons of gold lost in the escape. Stories of treasure lying somewhere beneath the city, but historians argued. Skeptics left. They said there was no proof, until 1981. In the historic center of Mexico City, near the Alameda Central, workers digging about 5 meters underground struck something hard. It was the stone. It was the debris. It was gold. A single bar weighing 1.93 kilograms. At first, no one knew what to think. Yes, it was old. Yes, it was valuable. But where did it come from? What made experts uneasy was its location. The exact place where it was found matched perfectly with the escape route Cortés and his men would have taken during La Noche Triste. That was not a coincidence. Still, for years, the bar remained a mystery. Back in the 1980s, technology simply wasn't advanced enough to give clearances. People argued endlessly. Some said it could be colonial. Others said it might be unrelated. There was no way to be sure, so the bar waited. Decades passed. And then, finally, science caught up with history. Using modern X-ray fluorescence technology, scientists analyzed the bar at a microscopic level. They studied its chemical fingerprint. Something that cannot lie. The results were stunning. The bar was made of approximately 70% gold, 20.8% silver, and about 3% copper. That composition was random. It matched almost perfectly with pre-Hispanic Mexican metallurgy. Even more disturbing was how the bar had been made. Its shape and texture matched descriptions written by Spanish chronicles themselves, accounts of how conquistadors melted sacred Mexica objects into crude bars so they could carry more wares more easily. This was the just gold. It was stolen history. For the first time in 500 years, there was a lot of evidence that the stories of La Noche Triste were true. The gold had existed. The loss had been real. And the greed had been fatal. But this discovery goes far beyond metal and measurements because for the indigenous peoples, gold was never just gold. It was sacred. These objects were connected to gods, rituals, and spiritual balance. They were not meant to be owned, sold, or hoarded. When the conquistadors took them, they didn't just steal wealth, they committed sacrilege. And so, a belief was born. A belief that the stolen gold was cast. Stories spread quickly among survivors. Stories of Spaniards WH escaped with gold only to die violently later. Men WH were up, betrayed, or struck down by illness, fortunes that brought misery instead of peace. Even after Tenochtitlan finally fell in 1521, Serichas Rakabet never brought stability. They fueled jealousy. They caused betrayals. They led to premature deaths. The gold, people said, was angry. For generations. This belief kept Treche hunters away. Few dared to search seriously. So los Treche became more than wealth. It became a warning. A symbol of punishment for those WHO diste what should remain. Buried. From an archaeological point of view, the gold bar is priceless. Not because of its market value, but because it speaks when written history cannot. It confirms that the Mexica resistance was stronger than often admitted. That the Spanish were not unstoppable. That they were defeated, forced to flee. And forced to abandon much of what they stole. This one bar suggests something even bigger. If one piece survived underground for 5 centuries, how many others are still there? How much gold sank into the canals that night? Archaeologists believe the loss was massive far more than a single bar. As the escape grew more desperate, soldiers likely dropped or threw away their loot to save themselves. Even made up that escape route could be hiding fragments of history, but modern Mexico's it makes etching incredibly difficult. A city is built directly on top of ancient Tenochtitlan. Skyscrapers, roads, subway tunnels all laid over ruins. Even new construction project risks destroying priceless evidence before it can be studied. That is why this discovery matters so deeply. It proves that, even in the most developed urban areas, the past is still there, still waiting, still watching. And without modern science, this bar would have remained just an interesting object. Nothing more. Technology gave it a voice. It revealed how advanced rare Hispanic metallurgy truly was, how skilled indigenous craftsmen were, long before European arrival. It also exposed the mindset of the Canques, how sacred art was reduced to raw material, how meaning was erased for profit. This gold bar is not just proof of loss. It is proof of violence, arrogance, and cultural distraction. And yet, it also proves resistance. It shows that the Mexica fought back, that they inflicted real damage, that the conquest was not quick or clean. History books often tell a story from one side. Discoveries like this force us to listen to the other. And this is only the beginning. The discovery of that single gold bar didn't just answer old questions. It opened new wounds. It forced historians, archaeologists, and everyday people to look again at what really happened 5 centuries ago. Because once you accept that one piece of the treasure was real, you had to face a bigger truth. That night, far more was lost. Historians believe the amount of gold abandoned during La Noche Triste was enormous. Not just bars, but metal jewelry, ceremonial masks, sacred offerings, objects created over generations, things that carry stories, things that carried prayers. As Spaniards ran, panic to cover. The Mexica attacked from every side. Bridges collapsed, bodies piled up, screams echoed through the canals. Men made impossible choices. Drop the gold and live, or hold on, and SNK.M and it shows the gold, and the city swallowed them. When archaeologists mapped the exact location where the bar was found, something chilling became clear. It lay precisely along the route Cortés and his troops used to flee. This wasn't a random loss. It was a trail of desperation, greed, and fear. Every step of that escape could be hiding more fragments. Every meter underground could be holding silent witnesses to that night. But searching for them today is incredibly difficult. Mexico City is alive, crowded, always moving. Millions of people walk daily over the ruins of temples, homes, canals, and battlefields. Subways roar through ancient layers of it. Concrete and steel press down on fragile history. Many potential discoveries are destroyed before anyone even knows they existed. That is why the 1981 discovery feels almost miraculous. It survived wars, earthquakes, colonial rebuilding, modern construction. It waited, and when it finally emerged, it demanded to be understood. The scientific analysis didn't just confirm the bar age. It revealed something deeper. The precise mixture of metals showed advanced indigenous knowledge. The Mexica were not primitive. They were expert metallurgists, refining alloys with precision long before Europeans arrived. The Spaniards didn't teach them metallurgy. They exploited it. They melted sacred objects using indigenous techniques, then reshaped them for their own benefit. This gold bar is proof of the transformation, a sacred past forced into a violent present. And this is where the story becomes even more haunting. For centuries, stories of hackers followed the Los Treche, not because of superstition alone, but because people needed meaning. They needed justice. The idea that stolen sacred objects would bring safe infiltrate to many. it balanced scale. Even if only symbolically. Some modern researchers dismiss the case Smith, and scientifically. There is no evidence that objects cause misfortune. But psychologically, emotionally, culturally, the weight is real. Handling objects tied to violence and loss can affect people deeply. Archaeologists have spoken about feeling overwhelmed, anxious. Even disturbed when working with conquest their artifacts. These objects carry memory. They carry pain. And for indigenous communities today, this discovery is not just academic. It is personal. It confirms what oral histories have always said, that their ancestors fought back, that the Spaniards lost more than they admitted, that resistance mattered. For a long time. Official history focused on conquest as something weak and inevitable, as if an entire civilization simply collapsed. But evidence like this tells a different story. It shows struggle, it shows resilience. It shows that the fall of Tenochtitlan was violent, chaotic, and far from one-sided. The Mexica forced the conquest to retreat. They reclaimed stolen wealth. They inflicted fear, and that matters, because history is not just about WHO wins. It is about WHO's head. This discovery has also reignited public fascination. Books, documentaries, films, and even legends continue to grow around the idea of hidden gold beneath the city. Some people imagine a massive cache is still buried. Others believe most of it was recovered or reused by the Mexica. The truth may be somewhere in between. Archaeologists now ask difficult questions. How much gold did the Mexica recover after the Spaniards fled? Was some of it hidden deliberately to protect it from future invasions? Was it melted again returned to ritual use or lost forever? Each question leads to another, and technology may hold the key. Modern detection methods, ground-penetrating radar, chemical analysis, and advanced mapping could reveal more in the future. But progress comes with responsibility. Every excavation risks damaging what it seeks to protect. Every discovery must balance curiosity with respect. This is not treasure hunting. This is memory. Recovery, the gold bar also reminds us of something uncomfortable. That modern cities are built on layers of suffering. That comfort often resonates stories. The streets of Mexico City are not just roads. They are timelines. And the cafes, offices, and homes, temples, canals, bones, and battles, the past is not gone. It is compressed. Waiting, the discovery has also influenced how scholars understand conquest across the Americas. The patterns in here repeat elsewhere. Looting, resistance, loss, hidden wealth from the Caribbean to the Andes. Similar stories unfolded. Sacred objects stolen, some lost, some buried, some recovered centuries later. The gold of Cortés is not unique, it is symbolic. For indigenous descendants today, this varies validation. It proves their history was real, their suffering was real, their resistance was real, and it challenges the idea that conquest erased everything. It didn't, it buried it. The future of this research is uncertain but promising. Every new construction project in Mexico City could reveal something extraordinary. Every controlled excavation could add another piece to the puzzle, but there is agency. Even expansion is relentless. Once destroyed, history cannot be rebuilt. That is why preservation matters now more than ever. The gold bar is now more than an artifact. It is a warning. A reminder that history demands patience, humility, and care. It also asks us something personal. What do we value? Gold, power, or truth? Because this story is not really about treasure. It is about consequences. It is about how greed can sink men into canals, how sacred things lose meaning when tending to profit, how history waits and then speaks when we are ready to listen. 500 years ago, the gold disappeared into darkness. In 1981. It returned, and it reminded us that the past is never truly silent. So the question remains, what else is still hidden beneath our feet? What other voices are waiting to be heard? And if more of that treasure is found, will we finally understand it not as wealth, but as memory? One thing is certain. The story of Hernán Cortés lost gold is far from over. And every discovery brings us closer to the truth, a truth heavy enough to sink an empire. If this journey into the past stayed with you, if it made you feel the weight of history, then keep listening, because history isn't end. It awaits. And when it arises, it changes everything.